House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.
Wow, everybody, I just jumped on Zoom and Liz and Gina are here from Remax Diamond Realty. It must be Tuesday and this must be House to Home. And in fact, I believe it is. Half a day, ladies. How are you?
Half a day.
Good day.
Okay.
Nice.
We talk about often and we cite, contracts on this show, and we've referenced, the good book, the Bible, and we've talked about, laws that have been authored and everything. The one common thread between all of them is get it in writing. Somebody had the wisdom to actually put it down on paper or parchment or anything and basically codified it that way. And as I understand it, the real estate industry kind of works on those same principles, right?
I think that's the basic rule of real estate. It's got to be in writing.
You can't just make up your own rules.
No.
Not in real estate.
Well, what are some examples, or is it basically across the board, everything has to be like in writing? Your lease, your terms, your loan.
In real estate, everything must be in writing. Okay, so that's the first rule of real estate. It's got to be in writing. But in our line of work, we run into occasions. For example, you have a rental property and you get ready to sell that rental property. You've decided it's time to sell, or you have rental property and, let's say I get sick and I'm not able to manage my own properties anymore and my kids have to manage it for me. If I wrote a real estate lease agreement with my tenants and I said, listen, you're going to pay me X for rent and I'm collecting this amount from you as your deposit, that's in writing. And if I go to sell my property, the escrow company, their job is to make sure that everything is in writing. Everything that you have in writing gets implemented. Everything you say, you collect it from the tenant that has to go back to the tenant. So the deposits, they have to collect that money from me because I'm selling now, and they have to give it to you, Jason, because you're buying it. If what I put in writing is not correct, so let's say I lease my property to Liz and I said, Liz, you can rent my property for $2,000 a month. I'm collecting $2,000 deposit from you, and when you move out, I'll give it back to you. And then Liz decides, she says, Gina, I'll pay you that deposit next month or in 6 months. And oh yeah, that's good. No problem. I don't mind. I'll wait. But I never get around to collecting it. But now I'm selling the property. And Jason, you're buying it. So you're like, no, Gina, I want that 2,000 because you put it in writing that you collected it. What shows me that you did not collect it? If I don't have anything to prove to you that I did not collect it, and let's say my tenant is not honest, and I go to the tenant, I say, I need you to write a letter saying that you did not pay this amount because now I'm selling the unit and the buyer wants me to fork it up because this is really your money. I'm just holding it until you move out. And the tenant says, no, I paid it.
And this is the origin of the term paper trail. And Liz, you've done a lot of very, very good work for our community in the field of conflict resolution. And this is the real reason why, if there is a discrepancy, you need to be able to have something that you can look at so you can figure out what went wrong.
Yes, everything has to be documented. And then what Gina was talking about, if you're purchasing the property, the escrow office will look at all the pertinent documents in relationship to the transaction and will follow it to a T. So if it states there was a 2,000 deposit times 4 units, that amount has to be credited to you as the buyer because the document trail and the paper trail states these monies were collected and therefore that would be given to you so that when the tenant vacates, you can refund it to the tenant if they return the unit in the condition received. Mm-hmm. So if the paper trail reflects it's received, unless there's any other documentation to say, well, the landlord failed to collect it for whatever reason, therefore, and Gina just had that transaction recently where she had to run around, collect the paper trail to justify it in order to close the transaction. It throws a monkey wrench into the transaction, and everybody gets huffy at the tail end of the transaction when their expectations, and then there's a monkey wrench thrown in and the expectations are not met. So we just, as brokers, we need to make sure all the paperwork is in order.
And thank
in
you for
order-
saying huppy, because I know there are a bunch of different words which you probably want to say, but we can't say on this show. But I got you. I know what you mean. Okay, now Gina, you know me, I'm a big tech nerd, right? And I got to tell you, I hate paper. I hate having like in stacks and inboxes and like filings and like everything like that. However, I do appreciate the fact that there is accountability. How much work has been done in your industry to actually digitize this and maybe have the reliability and the traceability of transactions and stuff like that, so it's documented but not necessarily in a physical form? Do they use PDFs or stuff like that?
Nowadays all of our work can be accomplished online. All of our documentation is online. But I mean, even though it's that convenient now, you could do everything online, there's still a lot of customers and clients who don't have the ability to sign, or they don't want to do it digital. So like in this case, I had a situation where the escrow company, because the arrangement was made between the landlord, who is now a seller, and the tenant who is occupying the unit, because the documents that they had on record said that the tenants paid a certain amount of money, but it really was not collected. The escrow company said, we need a third party to go verify that the tenant really did not pay. We cannot just take the landlord's word or the tenant's word. It needs to be documented by somebody other than the seller that this information now is correct. Because how do we verify that if the seller says that money was never collected, how does the escrow company know that what the seller is saying, which is different from what is written, is correct? So that's where we step in. Okay, you know what? I'll take a drive out there, because the tenant didn't have the ability to do digital documentation. Plus, I wanted to actually see the tenant directly and verify the information directly. So you go up there, you have a conversation with the tenant, you document, okay, this is what the lease agreement says. The seller says this. Can you confirm that information? Yeah, I confirm it. Okay, you need to sign all of these documents that I brought up. But the thing is, Jace, what we're trying to point out is, when you make these arrangements, do it at that moment in time and get it in writing. Because if I did not have an honest person sitting in front of me saying, yeah, you know what, I really didn't pay it.
It's always that.
Right? Yeah, there's always that. And real estate is already really stressful. It's stressful for the buyer. It's stressful for the seller. So at the tail end, when you're getting ready to close, we don't want you to have to endure any more stress. We want that part to be really smooth. But if we don't know, because how do we know in advance that you made other arrangements that you didn't put in writing? We don't know until these things pop up, right? And then you're really stressed. And honestly, we get stressed too.
Well, there you go.
Because
So Liz,
solve the problem.
Liz, let's wrap with you, because I would think that having documentation and like there it is, formal formal documentation of whatever kind of transaction or agreement or arrangement you're working with and everything, that just makes your job easier, because everything's all laid out. All you have to do is just follow the document.
That's right. And
follow the yellow brick road.
Yeah, and then you talk about digital. I would recommend individuals, you can keep it on your computer, but also I would say have a hard copy. Because what if somewhere down the road your computer doesn't work, and at that moment in time you need a particular documentation? And the best thing to do is keep a file, keep a binder or a file of all your real estate transactions that you can easily get to. The critical part, if you purchase something, your warranty deed, we have many people calling saying, hey, we didn't get our title. But if you have your warranty deed, it states the property was transferred to you in your name. That is proof of ownership. But of course, if you're buying something, you want to always get a preliminary title research to verify that that person is still the current owner. So Gina and I do a number of due diligence in terms of checking if someone is selling or if someone is buying. We want to make sure they're buying the correct piece of property with the right lot number and the right ownership that will sign. the documentation.
All you got to do is get it in writing. Even when you get married, you still got to sign a piece of paper.
You got it.
You take a vow before the big man upstairs that you and your partner are going to stay together forever, but you still got to sign a document. So, put that into perspective. So, ladies, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jason. Oh, by the way, Jason, just a
Yes.
reminder for the community, the Guam Association of Realtors is accepting grant applications, but it covers 3 items. It covers if you were in a home that was damaged and you're paying a mortgage, but you have to reflect all the proper documentation. And if you're renting and the rental was damaged and you had to sign a new lease, bring a copy of that lease. And the third item is if you went to a hotel because your home was damaged, bring a receipt.
And you guys are at the mall doing outreach, right?
That's right. And that's, I believe, on Saturday from 12 o'clock onward.
Okay. And if you have any questions, you can talk to Liz and Gina in person. You don't have to be like me and just talk to everybody I know in the world on Zoom. You can actually talk to folks in the flesh. So, ladies, thank you so much. We'll see you there.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye-bye.
House to Home, presented by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.